Welcome back to Backspace Academy. Here I am in the AWS website. Now the first thing that we need to do is that we need to create an AWS account by clicking on the orange button there in the top right hand side. Once we've done that, we can supply a valid email address and a valid credit card. Don't be too concerned about that, because for accounts that are less than 12 months old, you can operate under the AWS free tier. And for anything that operates outside of that is not a major concern either, because all of these labs will finish up with teardown instructions to remove all of those resources that you've created. So you'll only be using those resources for a very short amount of time. Once you've created that account, you can then go into the AWS Management Console. So we click on My Account, and then we go to AWS Management Console. Now, before we go any further, you need to make sure that you have downloaded the lab notes that come with this course. So you can see here, it's the Introduction to AWS Lab Notes. The section of the lab notes that we need to have a look at is the controlling costs with AWS. Now, to get these lab notes, if you're looking at this course on Udemy, you will see that in the video, you will see that there are resources there, and we have reference material. If you're interested, you can have a look at the AWS documentation. We have review questions, and we also have here our lab notes for this introduction to AWS. And that will cover not only this particular lab, but also the intro to storage services, database services, computer networking, and a lot of other labs that we're going to be doing. Or if you're looking at this course from Backspace Academy, you'll again see this materials tab, which will have the same information in there as well. So I'll just close out of those two. Okay, so here we are in the AWS Management Console. If we want to find a service, we can just type it in. For example, if we're looking for the S3 or Simple Storage Service, there we can find it, S3. And that's quite a good way of doing things. The other way of finding services, which is what I don't recommend, is you can click on this Services tab here, and you can see all of the services, and they're grouped according to a category, being compute and developer tools. The problem with this is that these categories change quite regularly, and it can be quite difficult to find what you need. And I think the easiest way is just to type it in the search box here, and you'll get exactly what you need. So we're going to have a look at the billing. So we can click on billing, and we can go through to here to the billing console. So we'll click on that. And there's our billing console. We could also get there by clicking on our account details up here. So we click on our account. We get our drop-down details, and we can click on our billing dashboard, and that should take us to the same thing. And so there we go, not a problem. Okay, so there's our dashboard, and it will show our spend summary. And as you can see here, we've got nothing because I haven't really done anything with it this month. But as you go along, you may get something there, but again, most of it will be covered under the 12-month free tier. If we want to get more information, what we can do is that we can have a look at the Cost Explorer. So we'll just click on that next to Spend Summary. And there we can see we've got our current month's costs and our forecast costs as well. Again, I've got nothing in here. So if we want to get a little bit more information, we can have a look at some reports. So we'll just click on the left-hand side here and click on Reports. And we can select a report, or we could even create our own report. What I'm going to do now is have a look at our monthly costs by service for the last 6 calendar months. And that's a pretty good one. Let's have a look at that. I'll click on that. And that opens that up again in the Cost Explorer. And here we can see we've got a little bit more detail. So this account is over 12 months old. So it's getting billed for stuff that we're using here. So I can see here in July, I got billed 50 cents for Route 53 and 23 cents for EC2 services. We can see here we've got a big spike here for registrar. So what that one is that I purchased a domain name for one of these labs, and that cost me $11. So just be aware, if you are going to be purchasing a domain name, that will be a fixed cost that you will be paying, and it will not be covered under the free tier. But I will make you aware of that if there is a lab that requires you purchasing a domain name. Okay, so that's one thing to have a look at. It's quite good, but it's also great to be able to be a bit more proactive and identify costs or overrun of costs before they actually occur. And that's where the AWS budgets can come in. So let's go into budget. So we can just click on the left-hand side here, budgets, and we can get to the AWS budget service. So I'm just going to get rid of that pop-up there. Okay, so there we have it. Other way we can do it is we can just go into the search, type in budget, and there we have AWS budgets, and that should take us to the same place. And so there we are. Okay, let's create a budget. It's going to be a cost budget. Click on next. Okay, we need to set the budget amount for the month. Let's have a look at that first. Set the budget amount. It's going to be every month, and it's going to be a recurring budget. We're going to do this on a regular basis. It's going to start straight away. It will be fixed. And our budget amount, let's make it $10. Let's type in 10. We'll just ignore budget scoping. You don't need to be concerned about that. It's a little bit advanced, and we don't need to be concerned about the advanced options there as well. We'll give our budget a name. I'm just going to call it backspace spend. That'll be fine. You can call it whatever you want. And we'll click on next. Now, what we can do is that we can create a budget alert. So if we're looking like we're going to exceed our monthly budget, we can get an email sent to us automatically to make sure that we're aware of that. Okay, so our budget amount is $10. Let's add an alert threshold. And we're going to do 80% of our budgeted amount. We could also do an absolute value so that we could put in here $8, and it would do the same thing because our budget amount is 10, and so 80% of that is going to be $8, and our trigger is going to be actual, but we could also do forecasted costs. So that's quite good as well. So if we're forecasting that we're going to exceed our budget, we could also do that. I'm going to leave it with actual. And we can have some notification preferences. So let's put in an email address. And we can also have an SNS alert, or a simple notification service alert, or a chatbot alert. We won't be too concerned about those. We'll leave those. They're a little bit more advanced for us. We'll learn more about that sort of stuff as we get later on into the course. We'll click on next. So there we go. Now we can also attach an action. Now an action is quite an advanced thing, but for example, just say you are working in a large organization and an individual user exceeded their budget, or a department exceeded its budget. What you can do is that you can implement an action that will automatically restrict that person or that department's permissions to create more resources. And so that's quite a good one if you're working with a large organization and you don't want those costs to just blow out completely. Okay, we're not going to do that. It's a little bit more advanced for us right now. We're just going to leave it as an email alert, and we'll click on next. Okay, there we go. We've got our budget type. The name of it is backspace spend. It's a monthly budget amount of $10. We've got an alert when it exceeds 80% of that budgeted amount. And we don't have any actual actions attached to either. Let's create that budget. Okay, so your budget has been created successfully. So if we do find that we've exceeded that spend, we'll get an email to inform us that we're reaching our budget. Now, there are instructions in the lab notes on how to tear this down and get rid of it. I would suggest you do not do that. Do not follow those instructions unless you're going to create another one again. Leave your account with a budget and with a budget alert. It's a very good thing to make sure that you keep control of any costs and you're aware of any issues that may overrun your costs. So that brings us to the end of this lab on the introduction to the billing and management console and the AWS management console in general. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.